March 9, 1943, 0917 hours, 600 yards from Japanese destroyer Yamakasi cutting white break through Sullivan Sea. Captain Robert Hayes, age 28, aims nose of modified B-25. Mitchell bomber straighted warship bristling with anti-aircraft, wanting nothing more than to blow him from sky. Behind Hayes in cramped metal tunnel, barely wider than Coffin Sergeant Danny Martinez, age 19, loads 15-pound artillery shell into 75mm cannon that engineers swore would tear aircraft apart when fired. Shell is heavy, brass casing warm. Danny's hands shake not from fear exactly, but from understanding that in 10 seconds either this weapon works or two young men become first casualties of General's stubborn refusal to listen to experts. Mathematics said this was suicide. Physics said recoil would shatter airframe. Slide rules proved cannon-mounted an airplane was impossible. But General William Bradford threw those calculations in trash and ordered build it anyway because Japanese destroyers were running supplies unchallenged and high-altitude bombing was failing spectacularly. Now Hayes and Martinez are flying proof that desperation sometimes beats engineering. Question being answered in next 10 seconds is whether it also beats Japanese steel or just kills optimistic pilots. Hayes squeezes trigger. World explodes. This is story of how Texas crop duster, an angry general turned medium bomber into flying battleship. How weapons so brutal it changed Pacific War, then disappeared before being reborn as modern gunship protecting soldiers today. Story of courage measured not in medals, but in willingness to try impossible because mission demanded it. If you or someone you love served in Pacific Theater, or flew B-25s, or understands that sometimes winning means attempting impossible, this story honors that courage. Like and subscribe to preserve these memories before they disappear. Austin, Texas, September 14, 1914. Robert James Hayes, born to cattle rancher father and school teacher mother in hill country, where sky stretches forever and land rolls gentle under endless blue. Second of three sons and family, understanding that depression is coming before it arrives because cattle prices already falling and banks already nervous. Father raises cattle, mother teaches school. Both work hard instilling in sons understanding that security is illusion and tomorrow might take everything, so save money and plan ahead and never assume good times last because they never do. Bob grows up watching barnstormers land in pastures offering rides for $5. First flight, age 12, changes everything. Ground falls away. World becomes different place viewed from above, where problems look smaller and possibilities look larger. Decides that day he will fly forever or die trying because nothing on ground will ever match feeling of leaving it. Age 16, Bob quits school helping father because depression hit hard and every hand needed. But flying calls louder than cattle. Works odd jobs saving money, takes lessons at small airfield from instructor named George Wilson, who flew observation missions in Great War, and knows that flying low requires different skills than flying high. Wilson teaches that mistakes at 50 feet kill instantly, while mistakes at 5,000 feet give time to recover. Teaches that low flying means reading terrain before instruments show changes, means feeling turbulence through see it before wings shake, means developing instincts that cannot be taught, only learned through hours close enough to ground that wheels nearly touch crops. Bob Solos, 1931, age 17. Gets commercial license 1933. Starts crop dusting business. 1935, flying low over cotton fields, spraying pesticides. Learns to see individual plants from cockpit. Feel wind shifts before they happen. Judge distances precisely because error at 50 feet means crashing. 5,000 hours develop instincts that will save his life. When flying low over ocean, shooting destroyers means getting close enough to guarantee hits while staying alive to fire again. Summer 1937, July 4th, church picnic under oak trees where families gather celebrating independence and pretending depression is ending, even though everyone knows it continues grinding down hopes. Bob, age 23, attends because mother insists. Helen Bennett, age 21, teaches second grade. Graduated Texas State Teachers College. Lives with parents saving for apartment that seems impossibly distant. They meet at dessert table, both reaching for same slice of pecan pie. Both laugh. Share pie sitting on blanket talking 3 hours about everything. Bob tells about flying low where you see individual plants. Helen tells about teaching children who think Texas is entire world. Both understand that small perspectives are sometimes truest. They court through 1937 and 38 properly. Picnics and movies and long drives talking about futures that seem uncertain but possible together. Helen's father approves because Bob works hard and treats daughter with respect. Mother approves because Bob attends church and does not drink and seems steady when world is not. Sunday dinner, August 1941. Critical moment testing. Whether young man wanting daughter is ready for family responsibility. Helen's mother sets table with good china reserved for important occasions. White tablecloth ironed smooth, silverware polished until reflecting faces bent over plates. This is not ordinary Sunday. This is evaluation, food prepared since dawn, and some. Helen's mother knows way to heart runs through stomach filled with abundance prepared with love. She serves brisket, slow-cooked 12 hours over mesquite coals until meat falls apart when touched. Smoke and salt and pepper, crust black and crispy outside. Inside tender enough to cut with fork. Smell fills dining room, making mouthwater before first bite. Mashed potatoes real not powder. Butter melting into golden pool at center. Cream beaten in until texture resembles clouds. Collard greens cooked with ham, hock until tender but still bright green. Cornbread squares, golden brown and crumbly, perfect for soaking meat juices. Sweet tea sweating in glasses. Ice cubes melting slowly. Condensation running down sides. Pecan pie cooling on windowsill. Helen made it herself following mother's recipe. Crust flaky and golden. Filling thick with pecans and corn syrup, creating texture between liquid and solid. Smell drifts through room, promising sweetness after savory. Bob sits at table thinking this is Texas. Not flag or anthem. This, table laden with abundance. Family gathered without fear. Food prepared with love, not necessity. Safety and comfort that half world cannot afford, and other half is losing to dictators. This is what America means. Family eating together. Enough food that sharing is possible. Freedom to gather without government permission. Helen's father asks about flying business. About prospects if war comes because everyone knows war is coming. About intentions toward Helen because father's eyes say what mouth only hints. You want my daughter. You prepared to support her. You understand what marriage means when world catches fire. Bob answers honestly. Sir, I fly crop dusters because it pays bills and keeps me in air. If war comes, I will enlist because sitting home safe while others fight sits wrong with conscience. And yes, sir, I want to marry Helen if she will have me. Intend to ask proper soon as I can afford ring. Helen's mother smiles. Father nods slowly. Helen blushes but does not correct Bob. They all know what is coming. War approaches. Bob will serve, but first wedding and promises and hope that promises can be kept. After dinner, Bob and Helen walk around block. Summer evening warm, fireflies emerging. He holds her hand thinking about brisket and family and future. Says what he has been thinking. I want to marry you, Helen Bennett. I know I should wait until I have more money. Know I should have ring and plan. But world is catching fire and I am afraid if I wait, there might not be time. She says yes before he finishes. Yes, crying because she hoped he would ask. They will marry simple ceremony when he saves enough for ring. Small house, secondhand furniture. Hopes bigger than bank account. Future built on brisket dinners and faith that love matters more than money. December 7th, 1941. Sunday afternoon. Bob and Helen at her parents' house. Another Sunday dinner. Roast chicken. Still good. Still abundant. Radio bulletin interrupts dessert. Pearl Harbor attacked. Pacific Fleet burning. Hundreds dead. Father turns the volume up. Everyone stops eating. Stops talking. Stops breathing. While announcer describes devastation impossible on American soil. Bob looks at Helen. She looks at him. Both know what comes next. He is pilot. Army Air Forces needs pilots desperately. Wedding scheduled for February, but war cannot wait. That night, they walk same block. December cold instead of summer, warm. Christmas lights trying to maintain normalcy that just ended. Helen speaks first because she knows him. You are going to enlist. Not question. Statement. He nods, unable to lie. I have to. Army needs pilots. I can fly. Cannot sit home safe while others die doing job I can do. She cries but does not argue. I know you do. But promise me you will come back. Promise me we will have wedding. Promise me we will have life we planned. Promise me this is not goodbye forever. He promises, meaning it completely. We'll try everything to keep promise. We'll fly carefully. We'll fight smartly. We'll survive if possible. We'll come home to brisket, dinners, and Helen and future they planned. January through August, 1942. Bob enlists January 8th. They marry February 8th before basic training. Simple ceremony. Base Chapel, Randolph Field. Helen wears borrowed dress. Bob wears new uniform. 3 days together before training resumes. Honeymoon is weekend in San Antonio, pretending war does not exist. Flight training where Bob's crop dusting experience translates perfectly. Instructors notice Hayes is comfortable at 50 feet in way most pilots are not. Can read terrain instinctively. Feel aircraft through seat and hands. Gets a sign in medium bombers. Perfect for crop duster, understanding that low and fast beats high and careful. Falls in love with B-25 Mitchell immediately. Twin engine. Sturdy, forgiving, powerful. Takes punishment and keeps flying. Reminds him of crop dusters that absorbed wind and turbulence and kept working. Writes Helen weekly, cannot tell where or what, just tells about flying, about aircraft that feels solid, about other pilots becoming friends, about belief that what they are doing matters. Helen writes back about teaching, about baby on the way discovered in March, about loving him and fearing for him and praying for safety. Orders arrive August 15th, report 5th Air Force, Southwest Pacific. Bob ships out August 20th. Arrives Port Moresby, New Guinea, September 1st. Journey feels like traveling to end of Earth because Port Moresby looks like end of Earth. Coral runway. Tense. Heat oppressive. Humidity worse. Ocean stretches forever promising isolation. Assigned 405th Bomb Squadron. Green Dragons flying anti-shipping strikes. Standard tactic is high-altitude precision bombing from 20,000 feet using Norden bomb site rumored to drop bombs into pickle barrel from 4 miles up. Theory beautiful, reality humiliating. Bob flies first mission, September 10th, 20,000 feet. Perfect textbook altitude. Target is destroyer convoy. Bob peers through bomb site. Calculations perfect. Drift adjusted. Release lever pulled. Bombs whistle down 40 seconds. Ocean erupts in white geysers 200 yards from nearest ship. Destroyers do not break formation. Just turn slightly, letting American explosives splash harmlessly. Humiliating, complete waste. Bob flies 14 more missions through November. 0 hits, not one. Watches Japanese ships dance away from million-dollar explosives. Writes Helen October. We drop bombs into empty ocean. Feel useless. Baby will be born while I am failing at war. Cannot explain frustration of watching enemy escape every day. Helen writes back November. Baby due April. Praying you home safe. Do not volunteer for dangerous missions. Baby needs father alive, not dead hero. War will end someday. Come home to us. But Bob has decided that if missions are useless anyway, might as well volunteer for something that might work even if dangerous because dying attempting success beats surviving while accomplishing nothing. November 20th, new Commander General William Bradford, age 53, arrives looking more like mechanic than general. Short, aggressive, harsh-spoken, walks with strut, talks like starting fight, reviews 200 failed bombing missions, throws reports in trash literally because numbers mean nothing when results prove tactics worthless. Calls squadron meeting. Gentlemen, high-altitude precision bombing is theater, not warfare. We drop million-dollar explosives while Japanese laugh, watching bombs fall and turning ships like Matador avoiding bull. That ends now. We are getting low, getting close, getting mean. Pilots assume he means dive bombing. Bradford means something else, something experts say is impossible. Holds up photograph of M4 75mm cannon. Same weapon in Sherman tanks. Fires 15-pound shells. Punches through concrete. Destroys light tanks. Designed to be bolted to ground or inside 30-ton vehicle. This is answer to destroyer problem. We mount this in B-25 nose. Fly straight at target, shoot them with artillery at close range. Turn medium bomber into flying tank that hunts ships. Silence. Pilots exchange glances, thinking General lost mind. Bob raises hand. Sir will not recoil, tear wings off. Bradford grins like questions exactly what he wanted. Engineers in California say this. Calculated stress and concluded catastrophic failure. I say let's find out, because engineers are wrong about many things. Need volunteers. Aircraft ready 2 weeks. Who wants to fly a weapon that should not exist? Bob thinks about Helen, 8 months pregnant. About baby due April. About promise to come home safe. About 14 useless missions accomplishing nothing. About doing something that matters even if dangerous. Raise his hand. I will fly it, sir. Bradford nods. Good man, Hayes. Anyone else? Eventually 5 more pilots volunteer. All young, all frustrated, all willing to try impossible because impossible might work while safe definitely does not. December, mechanics begin modifications. Beautiful glass bombardier nose sawed off. Blunt, ugly metal snout installed, looking like aircraft punched in face. Interior gutted. Navigator station deleted. Bombardier fired. New crew position created with most terrifying job description. Cannoneer. Sergeant Danny Martinez, age 19 from El Paso, Texas, volunteers after hearing it described as important. Without understanding, important means standing in cramped tunnel wrestling, 15-pound shells while aircraft bounces at 200 miles per hour. Danny, a small, wiry kid, 5'6", 130 pounds. Fast hands, quick reflexes. Enlisted June 42 after high school. Top of aerial gunnery class. Arrived Port Moresby November, same time as Bradford. Young enough to think adventure sounds appealing, old enough to understand death is possibility. Meets Bob. December 10th. Handshake. Mutual assessment. Bob sees kid trying to look brave while terrified. Danny sees older pilot who seems calm but has same fear in eyes. Bob speaks first. Martinez, you understand this job might kill you even if aircraft survives. Recoil could break your neck. Shell could detonate and breach. 100 things could go wrong, ending with you dead, and me explaining to your mother why I let you load gun that killed you. Danny honest. Yes, sir, I understand, but doing nothing definitely does not help win war. Rather try something that might work than sit safely accomplishing nothing. Same reason you volunteered, I think. Bob nods, recognizing logic that motivated his decision. Better die trying than live useless. All right, Martinez, you load, I fly. We watch each other's backs. Deal, sir. They shake hands, sealing partnership that will survive 30 combat missions and end only when disease takes Danny in hospital bed thousands of miles from combat he survived. December 15th. First test proves experts wrong. Aircraft ready. Bureau number 434432, nicknamed Texas Thunder by mechanics who installed cannon and painted lightning bolt. Striking destroyer. Bob touches Helen's photo before climbing into cockpit. Reads her last letter. Baby moving now. Kicks like you when impatient. Come home safe to meet our child. Promise me. Bob climbs in. Danny loads into Cannoneer Station looking at 900-pound cannon, thinking either this works or we become first casualties, proving Bradford wrong. Takeoff sluggish, aircraft heavy, handles like dump truck with wings. Climbs slowly to 2,000 feet. Target is uninhabited coral reef offshore. Bob lines up nose-fighting controls that feel mushy. At 1,200 yards, Danny loads first shell. Sir, you think we will survive this if we're honest? Danny, I have no damn idea, but if we do, we will be first men to shell enemy from airplane. That has to count for something, even if we die proving concept. Bob squeezes trigger. Entire airframe shudders as if flying into brick wall. Plane's momentum pauses. Cloud of white smoke fills cockpit, blinding crew. Noise is deafening, thump rattling teeth. Danny thrown against bulkhead, but braces prevent injury. Smoke clears, wings attached. Rivets held. Glass did not shatter. Down on reef, massive plume of water and coral erupts exactly where nose pointed. Bob checks instruments. Oil pressure good, engine temperature normal, controls responsive. Aircraft survived. Concept proven. Bradford was right. Engineers were wrong. Sometimes desperation beats mathematics. Danny manages weak laugh. Sir, I think I just pissed myself, but gun worked. Bob laughs, relief flooding through body. Danny, I think we both did. But yeah, it worked. California engineers can keep their slide rules. We just proved impossible, possible. Let's do it again. They fire 4 more rounds, each successful, each proving weapon everyone said would kill crew actually works. When crew understands what they are doing, an aircraft is tougher than experts believe. Land at Port Moresby to cheers. Bradford meets them, grinning like man who bet career on crazy idea and won. Hayes Martinez, you just made history. First men to fire artillery from aircraft successfully. How does it feel? Bob climbs out, legs shaking. Feels like we proved you right, sir. Also feels like we need new flight suits. Bradford laughs. Get cleaned up. Fly again tomorrow. We have training schedule and war to win. That night, Bob writes Helen. Cannot tell details, but mission successful. Aircraft works. Concept proven. Will write more when allowed. Love you and baby. Count days until April. Training begins next day. Learning to aim entire airplane at target while flying close enough to guarantee hits. Suicidally close. 1,200 yards. 1,000. 800. Close enough to see rivets on enemy ship. Close enough that miss is nearly impossible, but getting shot down is highly probable. Bob and Danny develop rhythm through repetition. Dive. Stabilize. Fire. Recover. Reload. Fire again. 3 rounds per pass if Danny is fast. Rate of fire slow, but each round delivers punch equivalent to direct hit from destroyer's main gun. By January, ready for combat. Question is whether training over friendly reef translates to combat over hostile ships shooting back. Answer comes January 20th, attacking first target. Small supply barge. Should be easy kill. Is easy kill. Barge disintegrates. Vanishes. Evaporates into splinters in burning fuel, leaving empty water where vessel had been seconds before. Bob circles looking for survivors. Sees none. Entire crew vaporized by single 15-pound shell. Returns thinking about what high explosive does to human bodies at close range. Cannot write Helen about this. Some things wives should not know. Through February 17, more barges destroyed. Word spreads. Suicide box actually works. Skepticism evaporates. Crews paint aggressive names on gunships. Sunday Punch, Dirty Dora, Ominous 7. Mount additional machine guns surrounding cannon, creating storm of lead that shred deck crews before artillery delivers knockout blow. But barges are practice. Real test waiting. Japanese destroyers still running, supplies unchallenged. Professional warships with trained crews in modern weapons. They watched American bombers fail for months. Have no respect for B-25s. See medium bomber at low altitude as large, slow target waiting to be destroyed. About to learn rules changed. March 8th briefing. Intelligence reports destroyer Yamakaze and convoy approaching. Real warship, not defenseless barge. Professional crew. Veterans of Guadalcanal. Fast maneuverable, heavily armed. Bradford brief squadron. Tomorrow we face real warships. They will try to kill you. Do not let them. Get low. Get close. Hit hard. Questions? Bob raises hand. Sir, what if cannon fails in combat? Bradford. Then you die and I get court-martialed for killing you. So make sure cannon works. That night, Bob writes Helen, what might be final letter though, does not call it that because that would worry her. Helen, tomorrow we attack destroyer. Real warship, not practice target. Maybe Bradford's idea beats conventional tactics. Maybe tomorrow I learn courage costs lives. Either way, I love you and baby more than anything. If I do not return, know I die doing something that mattered instead of dropping bombs into ocean. Tell our child father tried. Seals letter. Gives to chaplain. Insurance for wives who wait. Tomorrow will prove whether impossible stays impossible or becomes routine through courage and cannon and willingness to fly into destroyer guns because mission demands attempting what experts say cannot work. Bob lies intent, unable to sleep. Thinks about brisket dinner at Helen's house. About butter melting into mashed potatoes. About pecan pie cooling on windowsill. About table laden with abundance representing everything America means. About Helen pregnant waiting for him. About Danny, age 19, loading shells tomorrow. About Bradford betting career on crazy idea. about whether surviving 14 useless missions just delayed inevitable death by volunteering for dangerous one, but also thinks about alternative. High-altitude bombing failing, Japanese running supplies unchallenged, war continuing indefinitely because safe tactics accomplish nothing. Sometimes survival requires risking death. Sometimes playing it safe is most dangerous choice. Sometimes impossible is only option when possible is not working. Falls asleep finally thinking tomorrow proves whether Texas crop duster, who learned to fly low over cotton fields, can fly low enough over ocean to shoot destroyer with artillery mounted in aircraft that should not carry it. Whether general who ignored experts is visionary or fool. Whether Danny who volunteered at 19 is brave or stupid. Whether any of them survive to tell story or become footnotes in failed experiment. Dawn comes too quickly. Always does before dangerous missions. Bob wakes to sound of engines warming up. Danny already at aircraft checking cannon. Bradford on flight line watching crews prepare. Moment of truth approaching at 300 miles per hour. 6 B-25 gunships taxi to runway. Bob leads. Texas Thunder heavy with fuel and ammunition. Uses entire runway heaving into humid air. Climbs slowly forming up with 5 other gunships. Turns northwest toward last reported convoy position. Flight takes 40 minutes. Bob uses time reviewing attack plan. Strafe first, suppress gunners, then cannon. Aim for waterline below forward turret. Want to hit machinery. Want to flood ship. Want to kill propulsion. At 0910, smoke visible on horizon. Convoy. 3 transports in column. 2 destroyers flanking. Yamakasi leading. Professional formation. Confident. Japanese spotters see American bombers approaching. Sound general quarters. Crews man battle stations. Gunners load weapons. Destroyer captains order turns, presenting broadsides to bring maximum firepower to bear. Standard defense. Wall of steel thrown into sky. But B-25s do not climb, do not open bomb bay doors. They drop. Descend to 50 feet above the waves. Propellers kicking spray. Flying straight into teeth of enemy fire closing distance at 300 feet per second. This is moment everything built toward. Months of training, weeks of preparation, years of flying low over Texas fields, all converging on next 60 seconds that will prove whether impossible is actually achievable or just gets brave men killed attempting it. Distance to Yamakasi, 2,000 yards. Destroyer captain watches through binoculars confused. Looks like torpedo run. Standard counter is turn into attack presenting narrow bow. Orders helmsman turn hard. 300-foot warship carves white arc swinging nose toward bomber. But as destroyer turns, captain notices something wrong. American plane not dropping torpedo, not pulling up, not weaving. Flying straight terrifying line like hawk diving. This is madness. Flying directly at bow means flying into barrel of forward 5-inch gun and dual 25mm autocannons. Game of chicken between 20,000-pound aluminum airplane and 2,000-ton steel warship. Japanese gunners open fire. Tracers lash out. Sky becomes web of black smoke and screaming metal. Inside Texas Thunder cockpit world shrinks to ring sight on dashboard. Bob grips controls with white knuckles, fighting turbulence and instinct to flinch. Every tracer zipping past reminds how thin aluminum skin is. Single hit from destroyer's main gun will vaporize aircraft, but Bob cannot dodge. Cannon bolted to floor. To aim gun, must aim plane. Must hold aircraft steady facing wall of steel. Behind him, Danny braces in tunnel. Shell loaded, breech closed, waiting for Bob's trigger pull that will either prove concept or kill them both. Thinks about mother in El Paso, about letters he wrote saying doing important work, about whether important was worth dying for. Decides yes, better die attempting success than live safely accomplishing nothing. Bob at 1,200 yards squeezes machine gun triggers. 850 caliber guns erupt. Sound as jackhammer roar. Streams of armor-piercing bullets pour from nose at 50 rounds per second. Walk across water like chainsaw racing toward destroyer. Impacts hit bow and sweep toward bridge. Hammer against steel, sparking and ricocheting, not meant to sink ship, meant to blind it. Hail of lead smashes bridge windows and shreds anti-aircraft crews. Japanese gunners forced to duck. Flak falters. That is opening. Bob holds dive. Destroyer fills windscreen. Gray mountain growing by millisecond. 800 yards. 700. Danny taps Bob's shoulder. Gun hot. Breech closed. Shell live. Bob makes micro adjustment, lifting nose fraction, targeting waterline beneath forward turret. Stops breathing. This is normal. Everything depends on the next second. Squeezes cannon trigger and proves that sometimes Texas crop dusters and angry generals and 19-year-old kids from El Paso change warfare by ignoring everyone who says it cannot be done. Texas thunder stops in midair. That is what it feels like. Recoil delivers punch equivalent to collision with brick wall, invisible to eyes but solid to physics. Aircraft shudders violently nose to tail. Dust from floorboards floats up. Smell of burning propellant floods cockpit sharp and acidic, making eyes water and lungs burn. For split second, Bob is blind. View obscured by massive cloud of white smoke belching from muzzle. But physics of shell already working. 15-pound high explosive projectile leaves barrel at 2,000 feet per second, crosses 600 yards in less than a second, does not skip off water, does not bounce off armor, strikes steel hull just above waterline with force of freight train. Impact catastrophic. Destroyer's hull designed to stop machine gun bullets, not artillery shells. 75mm round punches through half-inch steel as if wet cardboard. Does not detonate outside. Fuse set with split-second delay. Shell smashes through outer skin, tears through bulkhead, and explodes deep inside ship's machinery spaces. Blast shreds steam pipes and electrical conduits. Turns interior of forward compartment into blender of shrapnel and high-pressure steam. On bridge, Japanese officers feel ship lurch as if run aground. Do not understand what hit them. Feels like torpedo, but no wake. Feels like mine, but deep water. Never imagined shelled by airplane. Texas thunder roars over destroyer's mast, so close rear gunner can look down and see panic on deck. Sailors running, officers shouting, smoke pouring from jagged hole in bow, where American shell punched through steel that was supposed to protect them from everything except other warships. Bob pulls back on stick, climbing away. Danny already moving, hardest part of job starting now. Aircraft banking, hard pulling G's making body weight twice normal. Must keep balance on vibrating metal floor. Reach into rack. Pull another 15-pound shell while aircraft banks and turns and Bob fights controls. Wrestles heavy brass casing into breech. Muscles straining against G-force trying to pull him sideways. Slams breech block closed with metallic clang echoing through fuselage. Screams into intercom. Gun ready, Sir Bob brings plane around in tight aggressive turn. Looks back at target. Destroyer not maneuvering anymore. Smoke pouring from jagged hole in bow. Ship listing slightly to port. Hit damage something critical. Maybe boiler. Maybe steering gear. Maybe both. Predator wounded but not dead yet. Bob lines up second pass. No surprise this time. Japanese sailors scrambling to get guns back in action. But fear set in. Not shooting at fragile bird anymore. Shooting at flying tank that just punched hole through warship everyone thought was invulnerable to aircraft. Second run, Bob aims for stern. Wants to knock out propulsion. Wants to leave destroyer dead in water, unable to escape or fight. Repeats deadly rhythm. Strafing run to suppress deck crews. Hold steady despite tracers everywhere. Wait for Danny's signal. Squeeze trigger. Cannon barks again. Recoil shakes airframe. Second shell strikes aft section near depth charge racks. Explosion different this time. Secondary detonation. Shell ignited something volatile. Massive fireball erupts from a rear of ship, blowing debris high into air. Shockwave ripples through water visible from air as dark ring expanding outward like stone dropped in pond. Except stone is high explosive and pond is ocean and ripples are death. Destroyer shudders and begins to slow. White wake, once frothy trail of speed, fades to turbulent swirl. Great ship that terrorized South Pacific for year now dying because two Americans in modified bomber ignored experts who said it could not be done. Rest of squadron descends like vultures on wounded prey. Switch to skip bombing. Come in low-releasing 500-pound bombs that skip across water surface like flat stones on pond. Slam into side of crippled destroyer detonating on contact. Steel plates buckle. Ocean rushes in through holes too many to count. Yamakasi groans under assault like dying animal making sounds metal should not make. Proud warship begins settling into water. Bow first, then amidships. Finally stern lifting as forward sections fill and pull ship down. 300 men scramble on deck. Some jump, some stay. All die when ship slips beneath waves, carrying them down into darkness that claims everyone who goes to war eventually, but claimed them today because Bradford ignored slide rules and Hayes flew low and Danny kept loading. Bob and Danny fly home in silence, both processing what they did, what they proved, what they became. Bob finally speaks over intercom. Danny, we just killed hundreds of men, someone's sons, someone's husbands, someone's fathers. Danny, quiet moment processing same thoughts. Yes, sir, we did, and we will do it again tomorrow if ordered. That is what war is. That is job we volunteered for. That is price of proving concept works. Bob nods, though Danny cannot see him. Thinks about Helen 8 months pregnant, about baby due in weeks, about whether child will be proud or horrified when old enough to understand what father did to protect world child was born into. Return flight takes 40 minutes. Bob flexes hands, getting blood flowing again. Flight suits soaked with sweat. Floor littered with hot brass casings rolling with every turn. Nose covered in soot from muzzle blasts. Aircraft smells like cordite and smoke and fear processed into action. But aircraft alive. Engines running. Controls responsive. He is alive. Danny is alive. They survived moment experts said was impossible. Proved that sometimes desperation beats mathematics when mathematics forgets that men willing to die trying change equations. Land at Port Moresby to crowd on flight line. Ground crews. Other pilots. Bradford standing in front, grinning like man who bet everything on impossible and won. Hayes climbs out, legs shaking. Bradford grabs his hand, pumping it. How does it feel making history, Bob? Honest. Feels like we proved concept, sir. Also feels like we killed a lot of people who were doing same job. We are just for different country. Bradford nods, understanding weight of killing, even when killing is necessary. Yes, you did, and you saved thousands of our soldiers. Those destroyers would have killed if allowed to deliver reinforcements. Mathematics of war where right answer still feels wrong. Get some rest. You fly again tomorrow. That night, Bob tries writing Helen, cannot find words. How explain to wife who teaches second graders that he just killed hundreds with weapon no one believed would work? How describe feeling of watching men burn and drown because he squeezed trigger? How balance pride and accomplishment with guilt over cost? Settles for short letter. Helen mission successful. Aircraft works as promised. Cannot say more due to security. Love you and baby. Will write properly when words come easier. Count days until April when I meet child and prove survival was worth price paid. Danny writes mother in El Paso. Also struggles with words explaining job that requires killing efficiently while feeling badly about efficiency. Mama, I am alive. Doing important work. Cannot explain details. Pray for me. Tell sisters I miss them. Love, Danny. Both men lie intense, unable to sleep, replaying combat, seeing destroyer exploding, hearing screams they could not actually hear from cockpit, but imagine anyway. This is cost of innovation. Price of proving impossible possible. Victory measured in enemy dead and own souls slightly darker than yesterday. March 10th. Intelligence translates captured radio transmission from Yamakasi's final moments. Under attack by aircraft carrying ship gun. Standard evasion useless. Warn fleet. Americans have flying artillery. Change tactics immediately. This weapon changes everything. Japanese Navy now fears invention they did not believe possible. Fear spreads through fleet faster than news of victory. Arrogance evaporates like morning dew under Texas sun. Destroyers that laughed at high-altitude bombers now run when twin-engine silhouette appears on horizon because running might save them while fighting definitely will not. Hunters became hunted, predators became prey. All because Bradford ignored experts and Hayes flew low, and Danny kept loading shells despite G-forces and fear and understanding that each shell killed men who probably did not want to die any more than he did. Bradford reads translation and smiles satisfaction of man Proved right by results, not rhetoric. Gentlemen, we have their attention. Now we have their fear. Let us keep pressure on them until they stop running or we run out of targets. Either outcome acceptable. March 2nd through 4th. Battle of Bismarck Sea. Peak of cannon's power and proof that innovation works when applied with violence and determination. Intelligence reports major Japanese reinforcement convoy approaching New Guinea. 8 transports carrying 7,000 troops. Protected by 8 destroyers. Largest convoy since Guadalcanal. If reaches shore, changes entire campaign because 7,000 fresh troops tip balance toward Japan in ground war that Allied forces are barely winning. 5th Air Force commits everything available. B-17s for high-altitude harassment, B-25 strafers for deck sweeping, and 6 B-25 gunships, including Texas Thunder for ship killing, with artillery that Japanese still cannot believe exists despite evidence sinking in Pacific. Bob flies 3 missions in 2 days. Day 1 sinks transport carrying troops and supplies. Watches ship burn. Watches men jump into ocean covered with flaming oil. Watches some burn. Watches some drown. Watches all die because he did job correctly, and doing job correctly means killing efficiently. Day 2 damages cruiser with 2 shells through engineering spaces. Ship does not sink immediately. Tough vessel, good damage control, but limps away trailing oil and smoke, no longer able to protect convoy it was supposed to defend. Day 3 returns to burning convoy, delivering final blows to ships already crippled by other aircraft. Sea covered in oil and debris for miles. Bodies floating, wreckage burning, survivors swimming toward islands, hoping to reach land before sharks or exposure or despair claims them. Bob watches Japanese soldiers jump from burning ships, swim in oil that coats skin, making swimming harder. Some catch fire from burning oil on water surface. Scream, die. Bob thinks about baby due in weeks, about whether child will be proud or horrified learning what father did, about mathematics of total war, where killing thousands saves tens of thousands, but math does not make killing feel better. Mission 3, March 4th. Final convoy mop-up. Most ships already sinking. Bob assigned remaining destroyer. Ship damaged from previous attacks but fighting. Deck crews still manning guns despite knowing ship is dying. Captain still trying to save vessel and crew even though both are doomed. Bob makes approach. Destroyer turns into him. Brave captain, stupid tactic. Cannot dodge cannon by presenting bow. Just makes easier target, like turning side toward bull, hoping horns miss. Bob fires. Shell punches through bow. Destroyer lurches. Does not sink immediately. Tough ship. Disciplined, crew fighting, flooding with buckets and prayers, and determination that cannot overcome physics. Bob comes around for second sem. Destroyer captain knows he is dead but fights anyway because that is what naval officers do when ship is dying and crew is watching, and surrender means dishonor worse than death. Guns firing, tracers everywhere painting sky with desperate defiance. One tracer punches through Texas Thunder's left engine cowling. Red light on panel, engine temperature spiking, oil pressure dropping. Left engine failing because Japanese gunner got lucky or skilled or both, and now Bob flying on single engine with destroyer still shooting and mission incomplete. Bob fires anyway despite engine failure because mission is killing destroyer, not surviving comfortably. Second shell hits amidships. Massive explosion. Boiler detonates. Ship breaks in half. Sinks in 90 seconds. Over 300 men die. Bob counts them as black dots in water getting smaller as he climbs away on single engine, thinking about how many mothers just became widows and how many children just became fatherless because he did job correctly. Return to base on one engine. Emergency landing. Ground crews swarm aircraft counting holes. 47 hits, most from machine guns. One from 20mm cannon that missed Danny by 6 inches. If shell had hit 18 inches left, Danny would be dead and Bob would have flown home alone with corpse of 19-year-old who trusted him to keep them both alive. That night, Danny breaks. Sits outside tent crying. Not from fear, from accumulated weight of killing that builds like snow on roof until roof collapses under weight it was never designed to carry. Bob sits next to him, says nothing, just sits because sometimes presence matters more than words, and Danny needs presence, not platitudes. Eventually, Danny speaks, a voice shaking. "Sir, How many you think we killed today, Bob? Honest, because lying would insult Danny's intelligence and courage. Couple hundred at least. Maybe more. Hard to count when they were burning and drowning simultaneously. Danny voice breaking. I keep seeing them in water, burning, screaming. We did that. We killed them. They were doing same job we are, just for different flag. Bob puts hand on Danny's shoulder. Yes, we did. And tomorrow we will do it again if ordered. That is job. That is war. Killing efficiently until someone tells us to stop and we die trying. Better us doing it than kids who cannot handle weight. We volunteered knowing this. We carry weight because someone has to, and we are strong enough to carry it even when it crushes us. Danny, does it get easier? Sir Bob honest. No, Danny. Gets harder. Each kill adds weight. But we carry weight because mission requires it and alternatives are worse. Japanese kill thousands if we do not kill hundreds. Mathematics terrible but clear. We kill or more people die. That is choice war gives us. They sit in silence processing what they became and what they did and what they will do tomorrow. Because war continues regardless of feelings and missions require completion, regardless of cost, and weight must be carried even when crushing. April 15th, 1943. Telegram arrives Port Moresby while Bob is flying mission over New Britain. Healthy baby girl born April 15th. Stop named Sarah. Stop mother and daughter. Fine stop. Come home soon. Stop. Love Helen. Bob reads telegram after landing, thinking about daughter born while he was killing. About timing. About Sarah Hayes entering world. Same week, Bob and Danny killed over 1,000 Japanese in Battle of Bismarck Sea. About whether violence buys safety or just perpetuates cycle where children born into world parents made violent protecting them. Writes Helen same night. Congratulations on Sarah. Cannot wait to meet her. Will hold her and promise to build world where she never has to do what I am doing. Promise to come home and be father she deserves. Promise to make survival mean something more than just not dying. Shows telegram to Danny. Danny grins first time in days since Bismarck Sea. Congratulations, sir. You are father now. Means you have to survive. Have to go home to them. Cannot die doing stupid things because baby needs father. Bob. Means we both have to survive Danny. Sarah needs uncle who understands what her father did to protect her. You are coming home with me. We watch each other's backs until war ends or someone tells us to stop. Danny nods. Unspoken agreement between men who trust each other with lives. They will get through war together. We'll both go home. We'll both try to live well enough to justify surviving when so many did not. Summer 1943. Technology evolves faster than sentiment. New weapon delivered to Squadron June. High-velocity aircraft rocket, HVAR. 5-inch rockets mounted under wings. No recoil, no human loader standing in death tunnel, wrestling shells. Pilot pushes button-firing salvo of 8 rockets delivering same destructive power as broadside from destroyer. Easier, lighter, more efficient. Future replacing present before present finishes proving itself. Bob test fires HVAR, July 15th, 8 rockets in 3 seconds. Impact pattern devastates target barge, turning it into cloud of splinters and smoke. Thinks about cannon that requires Danny standing in tunnel loading shells while recoil rattles teeth. About single shot versus 8 rockets. About Danny's life risked every mission versus pushing button. Mathematics clear even to men who ignored mathematics, proving cannon impossible. Cannon obsolete. Bradford calls Bob to office July 20th. Hayes, you have flown 63 combat missions, 47 confirmed ship kills. You proved impossible was possible. Changed Pacific War. Changed how we fight. Time to rotate stateside. Go home to wife and daughter. You earned it. Bob, sir. What about Martinez Bradford? Face changes. Expression Bob cannot read immediately but recognizes as bad news. Martinez rotated out July 1st. Malaria, sent to hospital in Australia, then stateside for treatment and recovery. Should be fine. Disease caught early. Good doctors. You both survived when statistics said you should not. Now go be fathers and husbands. Improve survival means something. Bob flies the last mission July 21st. Target is cargo ship, single shot, clean hit, ship sinks. Bob thinks about innovation that seemed revolutionary 4 months ago already outdated. War moves faster than sentiment, faster than attachment, faster than understanding. Just moves forward, crushing everything slow, including men who cannot adapt. August 1943. Bob boards transport for States, thinking about Helen. About Sarah, now 4 months old, who does not know father exists except as photographs mother shows her. About Danny recovering from malaria in hospital somewhere stateside. About 63 missions survived. About thousands killed. About whether coming home makes him victor or just lucky survivor who outlasted bad odds. September 19th, 1943. Letter arrives from Danny's mother while Bob is on train crossing country toward Texas. Opens it expecting news of Danny's recovery and discharge and plans to meet in person. Finally. Reads first line and world stops. My son Daniel passed away September 15th in hospital San Francisco. Malaria complications. Doctors said he fought hard but disease was stronger. He spoke of you in his last days. Said you kept him alive through 30 missions. Said you promised to watch each other's backs. Thank you for bringing him through combat. Cruel that disease took him after surviving war. We buried him yesterday. Thought you should know. Bob reads letter 3 times, 4 times, cannot process words that say Danny is dead. Danny who survived 30 missions loading cannon under fire. Danny who kept loading despite G-forces and fear and understanding each shell meant killing. Danny, age 20, survived Yamakasi and Bismarck Sea and 45 other missions only to die from disease in clean hospital bed 2 weeks before supposed to go home to El Paso. Bob sits on train crying, not quiet tears, loud sobs that make other passengers uncomfortable, but he does not care. Danny was 19, 20 when he died. Should have had 60 more years, should have married, should have had children, should have taught grandchildren about courage and duty and watching each other's backs. Instead, died in hospital from disease that makes no sense after surviving combat that should have killed him dozen times. Randomness of death makes it worse. Not heroic, not meaningful. Just random disease taking random victim who happened to catch it despite doing everything right and surviving everything dangerous. Bob writes Danny's mother from next stop. Mrs. Martinez, your son was bravest young man I ever knew. Stood in most dangerous position on aircraft doing job requiring absolute courage and trust. We survived together 30 missions. His death feels like betrayal of promise I made to watch his back. I am sorry I could not protect him from disease after protecting him from Japanese. Your son mattered. His courage mattered. I will never forget him. I will live well enough for both of us. That is only way I can honor promise I made. Mail's letter sits in station thinking about survivor's guilt that previously was about killing efficiently now is about surviving when Danny, who did same job, died from random disease. Realizes survival is not reward for courage or skill, is just luck. Random, meaningless luck that gives some men long lives and takes others at 20 for no reason except biology and chance. This knowledge will haunt Bob for 44 years until his own death. Will shape how he lives, how he fathers Sarah, how he teaches next generation, how he tries making Danny's 20 years matter by living well enough for both of them. Train continues toward Texas, toward Helen, toward Sarah, toward life after war that feels less like victory and more like obligation to dead friends who never got chance to live lives they earned through courage. Bob arrives Austin, September 22nd. Helen waiting at station, holding Sarah. Sees them through window before train stops. Helen looks tired. Sarah looks perfect. Tiny. Innocent. Unaware father killed over 1,000 men protecting world she was born into. Steps on the platform. Helen runs to him, kisses him while holding Sarah between them. Baby cries because loud noise and stranger frighten her. First time meeting father, who is not father yet. Just man in uniform who makes mother cry and smells like distant places and carries weight in eyes that was not there when he left. Drive to small house Helen rented. 2 bedrooms, small kitchen, backyard with oak tree. Normal house for normal family. But Bob does not feel normal. Feels like imposter pretending to be husband and father when really is killer who happened to survive. And Danny, who was better man, did not. First night home, Helen cooks dinner. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, apple pie. Same foods Bob remembered during missions. Same foods he thought about while watching men burn. Now sitting at table trying to eat and cannot because every bite tastes like ash and guilt. Food is perfect, that is problem. Tastes exactly how remembered, but he tastes it different now. Tastes it remembering things he cannot tell her about. Tastes it thinking about men who will never taste anything again. Tastes it knowing Danny died before tasting mother's cooking one final time. Helen notices. Bob, what is wrong? Food not good, Bob cannot explain. Food is perfect, Helen. That is problem. Tastes like it did before war. But I taste it different now. Taste it remembering Danny loading shells and dying in hospital. Taste it thinking about destroyer breaking in half. Cannot make taste separate anymore. Helen tries to understand but cannot. How can she? She spent war teaching children and raising baby. He spent war killing from airplane and watching friends die from diseases unimaginable after surviving combat. Gap between them is ocean of experience she cannot cross and he cannot explain. Sarah cries needing feeding. Helen excuses herself. Bob sits at table alone looking at half-eaten meatloaf, thinking came home to family, but feel more alone than in cockpit with Danny, who understood weight of killing because carried same weight. September through December. Bob struggles adjusting. Cannot sleep. Nightmares of burning ships and Danny loading shells and destroyer breaking in half. Wakes screaming. Scares Helen. Scares Sarah, who cries when stranger father frightens her with sounds that should not come from people. Cannot work. Needs job. Cannot accept jobs requiring being normal because normal died somewhere over Bismarck Sea, and man who came home is different. Broken. Trying to pretend otherwise for family that deserves better than broken man. December, Helen reaches breaking point. Bob, I love you, but you are not here. Body came home, but mind's still in Pacific. Sarah needs father. I need husband. Please try. Bob honest because lying to woman who waited would be worse than truth that hurts. Helen, I am trying, but I do not know how to be man you married when that man died somewhere over ocean. Man who came home is different. Broken, haunted by Danny who died and 1,000 others I killed. I am sorry, Helen cries. Then let me help fix you. Tell me what happened. Tell me what you cannot say. Bob tells her everything. Cannon that should not work. Danny loading shells. Destroyer sinking. Hundreds dying. Sarah being born while he was killing. Danny dying from disease. Survivor's guilt that makes breathing feel like theft from men who stop breathing because he squeezed trigger or because biology betrayed them after courage saved them. Helen listens without interrupting. When Bob finishes, she holds him. Bob, you did what war required. Killed so others could live, including Sarah and me. That does not make you monster. Makes you man who paid price protecting family. Now stop punishing yourself and start living for men who cannot. Live for Danny. Live for thousands who died. Make their deaths mean something by living well. That is only way to honor them. Her words simple but true. Danny survived, then did not. Hundreds did not. Thousands did not. But punishing himself by refusing to live does not honor them. Dishonors them. Makes survival meaningless when survival should mean living well enough for everyone who did not get chance. Bob decides that night he will live well enough for Danny and all others. Will make 20 years Danny should have had count by living 44 good years. Will father Sarah. Will teach others. Will make survival mean something more than just not dying. 1944. Bob buys small crop duster plane with money saved during deployment. Resumes business flying low over cotton fields, where mistakes still mean death, but death comes from crashing, not from Japanese gunners. Uses wartime skills for peacetime purpose. Flying low feels natural after cannon missions, where 50 feet was routine and 100 feet was cowardly. Provides for Helen and Sarah. Builds normal life from broken pieces. Gets up at dawn. Flies until dusk. Comes home to family. Eats dinner Helen cooks. Plays with Sarah, who finally stops crying when he picks her up. Slowly becomes father, not just survivor, pretending to be father. Sarah grows up knowing father flies planes, but not knowing what father flew during war. Bob tells her someday when she is old enough to understand, when he can explain without breaking. When words exist, that bridge gap between loving father who plays games and warrior who killed thousands. Years pass. 1945, war ends. 1946, life continues. 1947, Sarah starts school. 1948, business grows. 1949, Bob realizes he is living, not just surviving. Small victory, but meaningful. Danny would approve. 1950, June. Korean War breaks out. North Korea invades South. President Truman commits American forces. Bob, age 36, too old for combat, but Army Air Forces asked him to consult on crusader support tactics. Experience matters more than age. When experience includes prudent, possible. Flies to Eglin Air Force Base 4. Briefs young pilots on low-altitude attack techniques. Shows gun camera footage from Pacific. Explains bore sighting. Explains getting suicidally close to guarantee hits. Explains that survival requires accepting risk because safe tactics accomplish nothing against moving targets. Young pilots listen with respect, bordering on awe. This is man who proved cannon concept, who sank 47 ships, who survived 63 missions when average was 12 before death or rotation. Living legend teaching next generation how to kill efficiently while processing cost honestly. Bob tells them something not in manual. Gentlemen, flying low and shooting straight is easy part. Mechanics, simple. Physics, predictable. Hard part is living with what you see through gun sight. Hard part is coming home and being normal after killing becomes routine. Learn tactics I teach, but also learn to process cost. Talk to chaplains. Talk to wives. Talk to someone. Do not carry weight alone like I did. Danny and I carried it together. When he died, I nearly broke. You need partners who understand, find them, trust them, survive together. Returns to Texas thinking about Danny, who would be 27 now. Married probably. Children maybe. Teaching next generation possibly. Instead dead at 20 because malaria does not care about courage or survival or promises made between men who watched each other's backs. 1964, November. Bob, age 50, receives invitation to tour for AC-47 spooky prototype at Eglin Air Force Base. Aircraft is C-47 cargo plane modified with 3 miniguns, inside door firing 6,000 rounds per minute. Concept is orbit target pouring fire down from above, like dragon circling village. Direct descendant of cannon concept Bob proved in Pacific 21 years earlier. Tours aircraft with crew who treat him like royalty because this is man who started it all. Who proved you could put big gun in airplane and use it to kill ships, who changed warfare despite experts saying it could not be done. They show him miniguns, explain tactics, explain how orbiting provides stable platform while ground target remains stationary, making hitting easier than attacking while flying straight. Bob listens thinking about differences and similarities. We fired 3 rounds per pass with cannon. You fire 6,000 per minute with miniguns. We flew straight at target accepting risk. You orbit above on them accepting different risk. But principle, same. Bring overwhelming firepower from sky to protect ground forces. Different execution, same concept. Evolution I am proud to see. Crew asks if he wants to fire during test flight. Bob agrees immediately. Aircraft takes off, orbits target range. Bob sits behind minigun. Crew chief shows trigger. Bob fires. 6,000 rounds per minute pour from barrel. Sound is continuous roar, not individual shots. Target disintegrates under stream of bullets that does not stop until Bob releases trigger. Bob laughs first time in months. We did this with single cannon and Danny loading by hand. You have automation and fire rates we could not imagine. Same principle. Bigger scale. This is what Danny and I proved was possible. This is legacy we created. Thank you for showing me. Innovation continues. Flies home to Texas thinking about lineage, about how crazy idea Bradford had in 1942 became doctrine by 1964, about how Danny's 20 years mattered because concept he helped prove evolved into weapons protecting soldiers Danny never met, about how living well means seeing innovation continue beyond your contribution. Tells Helen that night about spooky, about miniguns, about feeling proud that stubborn refusal to accept impossible created lineage, still protecting Americans. Helen smiles. Danny would be proud too. You lived well enough for both. That is what I told you to do. That is what you did. 1978 March. Bob, age 64, receives invitation to tour AC-130H Spectre at Hurlburt Field, Florida. Aircraft is massive C-130 cargo plane with 40mm, Bofors cannon, 105mm, howitzer 25mm, Gatling gun. Ultimate evolution of flying artillery concept. Everything Bradford imagined, but bigger and more lethal and more precise. Crew treats Bob like founding father visiting monument built in his honor. This is man who started lineage, who proved concept with 900-pound cannon in 20,000-pound aircraft, who survived proving what everyone said was impossible. They show him weapons, explain fire control computers, explain precision that lets them hit target size of car from altitude of 10,000 feet. Bob walks around aircraft touching metal thinking about Texas Thunder and Danny and Bradford and all the men who said it could not be done. Thinks about 47 ships sunk with weapon that should not have worked. About legacy that evolved from desperation into doctrine into this massive gunship that protects soldiers worldwide. Crew asks him to fire 105mm howitzer as honor. Bob agrees, feeling weight of moment. This is full circle. Started with 75mm, evolved to 105mm. Same principle. Bigger punch, better platform. Proof that innovation endures when innovation solves real problems. Aircraft takes off, orbits target. Bob sits behind howitzer. Crew loads shell. Bob pulls trigger. Recoil feels exactly like 75mm felt 35 years earlier. But now 70,000-pound airframe absorbs shock easily. No teeth rattling, no shuddering, just smooth, powerful punch delivering explosive exactly where aimed. Bob laughs thinking about comparison. We did this with aircraft barely able to carry weapon. Every shot was violence against physics. You have luxury of aircraft designed for this. Designed to carry and fire and absorb without breaking. This is what evolution looks like. This is what Danny and I started. Thank you for finishing what we began. Crew asks for advice. Bob thinks carefully before answering. You have precision weapons we dreamed about, computers we could not imagine, platforms we would have killed for. Use them well, protect ground troops, save lives. But remember cost. Every shell you fire kills someone, someone's son, someone's father, maybe someone doing same job. You are just for different flag. Do job correctly, but process cost honestly. That is price of being professional. That is weight warriors carry. Carry it well, carry it together. Do not carry it alone. Stands on tarmac watching AC-130 take off thinking about validation. Innovation. He and Danny proved 35 years earlier now protects soldiers worldwide. Concept lives. Evolves, matters. Danny's 20 years and Bob's survival means something beyond just statistics in war nobody remembers details of anymore. Drives home to Texas thinking lived long enough to see crazy idea become doctrine. Lived well enough to teach next generation. Made survival count. Made Danny's death mean something by living well for both of them. That is best any survivor can do. Live well enough that dead friends would approve. 1980s. Bob, age 70, still flying crop dusters. Still sharp, still competent, still comfortable at 50 feet in way younger pilots are not. Sarah, age 40, married with 2 children. Grandchildren who think grandfather is nice. Old man who flies planes and tells stories about old days when men were different and wars were clear and right and wrong were obvious. Sarah finally asks him about war, November 1986. Sitting in his kitchen, drinking coffee while grandchildren play outside. Dad, you never talk about what you did in war. I am old enough to understand now. Grandchildren ask questions I cannot answer. Tell me what you did so I can tell them who you really were. Bob thinks about keeping silent, about protecting daughter from knowledge that father killed thousands, about maintaining illusion of nice old man who just flew planes, but decides honesty matters more than comfort. Sarah deserves truth. Grandchildren deserve knowing who grandfather was, not just who he pretends to be. Tells her everything. Cannon that should not work. Danny loading shells under fire. Destroyer Yamakasi breaking in half. Bismarck Sea Massacre. Thousands killed. Sarah born while he was killing. Danny dying from disease after surviving combat. 43 years carrying weight of survival and killing. 43 years trying to live well enough to justify surviving when better men did not. Sarah listens crying, not from horror, from understanding finally who father is beneath surface of nice old man. When Bob finishes, she hugs him hard. Dad, I am proud of you. Proud you fought. Proud you survived. Proud you lived well despite it. Proud you never bragged. Just did job and moved on. That is hero, not loud, just competent and humble and determined. Bob, I am not hero, Sarah. Just survivor who got lucky when Danny did not. Just man who killed because war required it. Just father trying to be worth surviving for. Sarah, Dad, you are hero to me, to grandchildren, to everyone you taught, to soldiers AC-130 protects using concept you proved. You changed warfare, changed world, made it safer for me and my children. That is hero, whether you accept it or not. Bob thinks about that, about whether hero is title you claim or role others give you. Decides it does not matter. Did job, survived, lived well, taught others. That is enough regardless of labels. March 15, 1987. Sunday morning. Bob, age 72, working in garden. Helen inside cooking lunch. Sunday tradition. 40 years running. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. Same meal from 1941 before war changed everything. Meal representing normalcy and abundance and family gathered without fear. Bob feels chest tighten, pain shooting down left arm, recognizes heart attack immediately, calls Helen. She runs outside, calls ambulance, holds him while they wait. Bob conscious but fading, thinks about life lived, about Helen who fixed broken man, about Sarah who made survival meaningful, about Danny who died at 20, about whether 72 years is enough when some get 20 and others get nothing. Ambulance arrives. Paramedics work quickly. Bob stable but critical. Helen rides with him. Sarah meets them at hospital. Grandchildren called. Family gathers thinking this might be end. Bob conscious enough to speak. Weak but determined. Tells Helen, thank you for fixing broken man. Thank you for 43 years after war when I did not deserve surviving. Thank you for making life worth surviving for. Tells Sarah. Be proud of father even though father did terrible things for good reasons. Tell grandchildren war is sometimes necessary but always terrible. Tell them grandfather did job and lived well and tried making survival count. That is all anyone can do. Tells nurse to contact Danny Martinez family in El Paso. Tell them I never forgot Danny. Tell them I lived well enough for both of us. Tell them Danny mattered more than he knew. Dies peacefully that evening. Helen holding hand. Sarah crying, but grateful for 72 years when Danny got 20 and thousands got nothing. Bob dies thinking about brisket dinners and Helen and Sarah and grandchildren and Danny and Bradford and Texas Thunder and 75mm cannon that should not have worked but did because Americans refused to accept impossible. March 20 funeral, Austin Cemetery, military honors, flag-draped casket, honor guard, rifle salute. Taps played by bugler while family cries and veterans salute and strangers wonder who man was that merits such ceremony. AC-130 flyover. 4 massive gunships in formation. 1 breaks off climbing into clouds. Missing man formation. Tribute to warrior who started lineage, who proved concept, who changed warfare. Sound of engines fades, leaving silence that feels heavier than sound. Sarah speaks at graveside, voice shaking but strong. My father proved impossible was possible. Flew weapon experts said would kill him. Survived 63 missions. Killed thousands protecting millions. Then spent 43 years proving survival meant more than just living. Meant teaching, meant family, meant making innovation count. He lived well enough for himself and Danny Martinez, who died at 20. That is legacy. That is what we remember. Helen speaks age 71, voice quiet but clear. Bob came home from war broken. We fixed him together. He became father and husband and teacher. War took part of him, but he gave rest to family and students and next generation. I am grateful for 43 years together even though first 10 were hard. He was good man who did hard things. That is all I need to say. Grandchildren listen learning for first time who nice old grandfather really was. That man who told stories and flew crop dusters and played games was once warrior who changed warfare. That gentle hands once fired artillery from airplane killing hundreds. That quiet man carried weight of thousands dead and one friend who mattered more than statistics. After funeral grandson age 14 asks Sarah, Grandpa killed people, Sarah honest, because lies dishonor memory. Yes, thousands. To protect you and me and everyone. War required it. He did it well. Then lived well despite cost. That is what made him great. Not killing, living well after killing, carrying weight without breaking, teaching others, making survival count. Granddaughter age 12. Are you proud of him, Sarah? Every single day. Proud he fought, proud he survived, proud he lived well, proud he taught others, proud he never bragged, just did job and moved on trying to be worth surviving for. That is American hero, not loud, just competent and humble and determined. June 4th, 2024, Air Force Academy graduation. Lieutenant James Rodriguez, age 29, ACE-130 gunner addresses graduating cadets. 81 years ago, Captain Robert Hayes and Sergeant Danny Martinez proved you could mount artillery in aircraft. Engineers said impossible. They proved experts wrong. Changed Pacific War. Created lineage we honor today. Every time I fire 105mm howitzer, I think about Hayes flying B-25 with 900-pound cannon and pure courage. We have precision weapons, GPS, computers, night vision. They had slide rule and guts and determination. We orbit safely above anti-aircraft range. They flew 50 feet into destroyer guns. We protect ground troops from distance. They got close enough to read enemy ship names. Technology evolved. Principle same. Bring overwhelming firepower from sky to protect ground forces. Hayes started lineage. Martinez proved it worked. Bradford ignored experts who said impossible. Together they created doctrine we follow today. Honor them by doing job professionally. Honor Martinez by remembering cost. Honor Hayes by living well if we survive. That is legacy. That is what warriors do. Sarah Hayes Rodriguez, age 31. Bob's granddaughter, named after his daughter. Works as aerospace engineer Lockheed Martin, designing next-generation gunships. Visits National Museum Air Force Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio. June 2024. Sees B-25 on display. Not Bob's aircraft, but same model, same nose configuration, same 75mm cannon that changed everything. Touches cannon, cold metal under fingers. Thinks about grandfather she never met who died before she was born, but whose legacy she inherited through name and profession and understanding that innovation means trying impossible because mission requires it. Thinks about great Uncle Danny, who died at 20, never knowing concept he proved would protect soldiers 80 years later. Museum guide notices her crying. Ma'am, you okay? Sarah wipes tears. My grandfather flew this in combat. Captain Robert Hayes, 405th Bomb Squadron. 63 missions, 47 ships sunk. He and Sergeant Danny Martinez proved concept everyone said was impossible. They lived it, paid price for it. I am aerospace engineer because of them. Because they showed me innovation means trying impossible despite experts saying it cannot work. Because they proved that American courage and determination beat careful calculations when calculations forget that men willing to die trying change equations. Guide. Your grandfather changed warfare, ma'am. Every gunship flying today traces back to his courage. What he started, we continue. That is legacy that endures. Sarah, he never talked about it, stayed quiet about accomplishments, just flew crop dusters and raised family and taught others. Found out after he died what he really did, what he really was. Makes me proud. Makes me determined to continue lineage. Makes me understand that quiet competence matters more than loud bragging. That doing job well matters more than claiming credit. That living well after surviving matters more than surviving itself. Stands at aircraft thinking about grandfather, who flew this into destroyer guns. About Danny, who loaded shells standing in death tunnel. About Bradford, who ignored experts. About Helen, who fixed broken warrior. About Sarah, his daughter, who made survival meaningful. About all the men who said impossible and all the warriors who proved them wrong. Thinks about AC-130 she designs. About 105mm howitzer that evolved from 75mm cannon Bob flew. About lineage connecting 1943 to 2024 through innovation and courage and refusal to accept impossible. About legacy living through aircraft, she engineers protecting soldiers she will never meet. Captain Robert Hayes died March 1987, age 72. Sergeant Danny Martinez died September 1943, age 20. General William Bradford died July 1956, age 67. All gone. But innovation lives. Legacy continues. Lineage endures. Every AC-130 mission flown today echoes thunder of those first shots fired over Solomon Sea, March 1943. Every precision strike proves Bradford was right to ignore experts. Every shell fired honors Hayes and Martinez, who bet lives on untested idea that became doctrine, protecting Americans worldwide. Legacy is not just technology. Legacy is principle. Principle that American innovation means trying impossible because mission requires it, means ignoring experts who say cannot be done, means betting everything on crazy idea that might work because safe ideas are failing and desperate times require desperate solutions, means living well enough after surviving to make survival meaningful beyond just not dying. Bob Hayes proved impossible was possible, lived 43 years making survival count, taught thousands, raised daughter, loved wife, made Danny's 20 years matter by living well enough for both. That is legacy warriors leave. Not just victories won, but lives lived well despite costs paid. If you served, or if your father or grandfather flew B-25s or AC-130s, or understands that sometimes winning means trying impossible, despite everyone saying it cannot work, share their names in comments. These stories matter. This legacy endures. Like, subscribe, and share to preserve memories before they disappear into silence that takes all warriors eventually, but cannot take what they built if we remember. Captain Robert Hayes, Sergeant Danny Martinez, General William Bradford, 405th Bomb Squadron Green Dragons. Proved impossible was possible. Changed warfare. Protected millions by killing thousands. Lived well despite cost. Legacy flies every time AC-130 fires. Every time engineer designs next-generation weapon. Every time warrior chooses courage over caution. Every time American refuses to accept impossible because mission demands attempting it. That is mathematics of gratitude we owe. Not just to warriors who died, but to warriors who survived and lived well enough to make survival meaningful. Who taught next generation. Who proved that living well after killing is harder than killing, but more important. Who carried weight without breaking, who made innovation count beyond just proving concept. Bob Hayes taught us that survival is not victory. Living well after survival is victory. Making dead friends proud by living for them is victory. Creating legacy that endures beyond your years is victory. Teaching others to carry weight without breaking is victory. That is what warriors do when fighting stops. They live. They teach. They make survival mean something. Danny Martinez taught us that courage is not absence of fear. Courage is loading shells despite fear. Courage is standing in death tunnel because mission requires it. Courage is trusting partner to keep you alive while you do most dangerous job. Courage is dying at 20 after surviving 30 missions because biology does not care about courage or survival or promises made between warriors who watched each other's backs. Bradford taught us that leadership is not following safe paths. Leadership is ignoring experts when experts are wrong. Leadership is betting career on crazy idea because conventional tactics are failing, and desperate times require desperate innovation. Leadership is taking responsibility for warriors who die, proving your concept, and taking pride in warriors who survive making concept doctrine. Together, they taught us that American innovation is not careful calculation. American innovation is desperate attempt, meeting stubborn determination, meeting refusal to accept impossible. Is Texas crop duster and angry general and 19-year-old kid from El Paso proving that courage and cannon beat mathematics? When mathematics forgets that men willing to die trying change equations experts cannot solve. That legacy flies today. That principle endures. That spirit protects Americans worldwide, not because technology evolved, but because principle remains constant. Try impossible. Ignore experts. Bet everything. Live well if you survive. Teach others. Make it count. That is story of 75 mm cannon mounted in B-25 Mitchell bomber over objections of everyone who calculated it was impossible. Story of two men who proved it worked. Story of general who bet career on crazy idea. Story of legacy that evolved from desperation to doctrine to AC-130 Spectre protecting soldiers 80 years later. Story of American innovation at its finest. Not elegant, not careful, just desperate and determined and willing to try impossible because mission demanded it and safe tactics were failing and someone had to prove it could be done even if trying killed them. Bob Hayes and Danny Martinez proved it could be done. Paid price proving it. Lived well after or died young after. Created legacy that endures. That is all any warrior can do. Try impossible. Prove it works. Live well if you survive. Make it count if you do not. Either way, create something that matters beyond yourself. That is mathematics of legacy. That is equation no expert can calculate because it requires courage, not calculation. That is what we remember. That is what we honor. That is what continues flying every time AC-130 fires 105 mm howitzer descended from 75 mm cannon that should not have worked but did because Americans refused to accept impossible. Remember their names, honor their courage, continue their legacy. That is duty we owe warriors who proved impossible possible, who changed warfare, who protected us, who lived well or died young, making survival or death mean something beyond just statistics, who taught us that American spirit means trying impossible because mission requires it, regardless of what experts calculate. Captain Robert Hayes, Sergeant Danny Martinez, General William Bradford, Texas Thunder, Flying Artillery, legacy that endures, story that matters, memory we preserve. That is all. That is everything. That is what warriors leave behind when fighting stops and living begins or ends. Legacy, principle, proof that impossible is just word describing what has not been tried hard enough yet.